It was supposed to be a simple, relaxing family trip, a break from work, a chance to reconnect, and a few days of much-needed downtime. I had taken the day off to join them, knowing how rare it was to get everyone together. The plan was to meet up at my parents' house, where we'd all drive together to the cabin they'd rented for the weekend. The house was an hour away, but the trip would be worth it. I was excited. Even packed a few things early the night before, making sure everything was ready. It had been a hectic few weeks, and I was really looking forward to the break. My parents, my younger brother, and I hadn't spent quality time together in months, and this trip was exactly what we all needed. I was already mentally relaxing as I drove to their place, imagining the peaceful weekend ahead. I arrived around noon, expecting to see their cars parked in the driveway, but when I pulled up, the place seemed eerily quiet. No cars, no movement. I figured they might be inside, getting last-minute things together. Maybe they had left early, but I thought they would have told me. I rang the doorbell. Nothing. I knocked. Still nothing. Confused, I pulled out my phone and checked it, hoping for a message. That's when I saw it. A text from my mom. "We left without you." I blinked at the words for a moment. I thought I was mistaken, so I read it again. "We left without you." What did that even mean? They were supposed to wait for me. I had made plans. I had taken the day off specifically to go on this trip. I quickly checked the rest of the message, hoping for some clarification, and there it was. "You can watch the house for us?" I stared at the text in disbelief. Watch the house? Was this some sort of joke? My heart started to race. Why would they leave without me? How could they just go ahead with the trip, knowing I was coming? I felt a wave of frustration and confusion. Why hadn't they mentioned this change of plans? How was I left out of the loop? And what did they mean by watch the house? The situation was starting to feel more and more off. I called my mom, desperate for answers. Ring, ring, nothing. That I tried my dad, hoping he might have a different explanation. Ring, ring again, nothing. That I checked my phone one more time to see if there was any new message, but no. My mind raced. I wanted to scream, but instead, I just stood there in stunned silence. This couldn't be real. After a few moments, I made a decision. I wasn't going to stay here like a fool, waiting for answers that weren't coming. I got back into my car, slammed the door, and drove off, feeling like I was living in some strange dream. But as I drove away, my mind kept replaying the message. "We left without you." Why would they do that? Why leave me behind after everything? And the part about watching the house? What was that even supposed to mean? Days passed, and I still hadn't heard a word from them. My parents weren't responding to my calls or texts, and that feeling of being completely shut out continued to gnaw at me. What was really going on? Why had they left so abruptly? The next few days felt like a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about the strange situation, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. It wasn't just that they left without me. It was the sheer coldness of the way they had done it. To tell me I could watch the house for them? That was just bizarre. I spent the evening at home, replaying every little detail in my mind. Had I missed something? Had they mentioned anything about the trip? No, nothing. The last conversation I'd had with them was about the weather forecast. Everything seemed fine then. They had seemed excited, even talking about how much they were looking forward to the getaway. I finally decided to go back to their house the following morning. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to let it go. When I arrived, I expected to see some sort of explanation, maybe a note or something that would help me understand what had happened. But as I pulled into the driveway, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Their cars were back. I was so confused. Why were they back already? If they'd gone on the trip, why were they home in the middle of the day? And why hadn't they called me? I parked my car, my heart pounding, and walked toward the front door, wondering if I was about to get an explanation, or if I was going to face more silence. I knocked once, then twice. After a few moments, the door creaked open. It was my dad. He looked at me, almost surprised to see me standing there. "Hey," I said, trying to mask the tension in my voice. "I thought you guys were on a trip." "Oh," he said, scratching his head. "Well, we didn't make it. Some stuff came up." His voice was flat, distant. What did that even mean? Some stuff came up? I had so many questions. Why hadn't they told me about this? Why was everything suddenly so vague? Before I could ask anything more, he stepped aside, gesturing for me to come inside. Look, sit down, he said, motioning to the living room. Your mom's in the kitchen. We need to talk. I followed him inside, still trying to process the situation. My mom was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at her phone. She didn't look up when I walked in, but my dad took a seat across from her, and I took a deep breath, preparing for whatever was coming next. What's going on, Dad? I finally asked. Why didn't you wait for me? Why did you leave without telling me? And why all the confusion about the trip? He hesitated for a moment, clearly unsure of how to respond. Then, he said something that caught me completely off guard. Look, honey, he started, his voice softer now. We didn't mean to hurt you, but things just didn't go the way we planned. Your mom and I have been going through some stuff. This trip wasn't just a getaway. It was something we needed to do, and we weren't sure how to explain it. I sat there, confused. What on earth could be so important that they had to leave without me? Why not just tell me the truth from the start? Why didn't you tell me you were having problems? I asked, trying to hold back my emotions. Why did you leave me out like that? My mom finally put down her phone and looked up at me, her eyes weary and apologetic. We didn't want to burden you with it, she said, her voice shaky. We thought maybe you'd just understand, but I can see now that was a mistake. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was angry, angry at being left out, angry at the secrecy, but another part of me felt sad. This wasn't the family I had grown up with. They used to be so open with me. What had changed? Before I could say anything more, my dad stood up. Look, we're sorry for how things played out. We should have been more upfront with you. Can you forgive us? I sat there for a long moment, unsure of what to feel. The situation was so much more complicated than I had ever imagined. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I needed to decide where I went from here. Could I forgive them? Was it even possible to move past the hurt? I sat there, trying to make sense of everything they had just said. My mind was racing. Was I really ready to just forgive them? It wasn't just the trip. It was everything that had led up to it. The secrecy, the sudden change in their behavior, and the way they had handled the situation. I didn't know if I could just brush it off and pretend everything was fine. Why Mom looked at me, her eyes pleading, like she wanted to fix it, but didn't know how. I could see the guilt on her face, but at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. Why hadn't they trusted me with whatever was going on? I was their daughter. Shouldn't I have been part of the conversation? I don't know if I can just forgive you, I said, finally breaking the silence. The words hung in the air, heavier than I expected. I feel like I've been kept in the dark. My dad's face fell, and I could see that my words stung him. He stepped closer, his expression softening. I get it, he said quietly. I really do. And I know it's hard to understand right now, but we didn't want to drag you into all the stuff we've been dealing with. We didn't think you should have to worry about it. But I do worry, I replied, my voice shaking a little now. I'm part of this family too. You can't just shut me out when things get tough. My mom, still sitting at the table, wiped a tear from her eye. I hadn't seen her cry like that in ages, and it made me feel guilty for being so harsh. But the hurt was real. The more I thought about it, the more I felt like I was just a background character in their lives, someone they could forget about when things got difficult. I'm sorry, my mom said, her voice small. We made a mistake. I know it doesn't make it right, but we didn't know how to explain what was happening. We didn't want to hurt you. There it was again. The apology? It seemed genuine, but part of me couldn't help but wonder if it was too little, too late. They left me out of something that should have been about family, and now they expected me to just accept their apologies and move on. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm in my head. I need some time to think about all this, I said, standing up from the table. I don't know if I can just forgive you right away. My dad nodded, his face somber. We understand. Take all the time you need. I walked out of the house, not knowing what to feel. The whole situation was so complicated. I loved my parents, but I wasn't sure if I could trust them the way I once did. I knew I couldn't just forget what happened, but part of me still wanted things to go back to normal. The family I had known, the one that was always there for each other, seemed like a distant memory as I got into my car. I couldn't stop thinking about the words my mom had said earlier. We didn't want to hurt you. But wasn't that exactly what they had done? I didn't know if there was any way to fix this. Maybe time would help. Or maybe it was time for me to move on from this broken family dynamic. But before I could process everything, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my dad. We've booked another trip. It's a small getaway. We'd love for you to come with us. We want to make things right. I stared at the message for a moment. My initial thought was to ignore it, but then I remembered all the years of family vacations, the fun times we used to have before all the tension started. Could this be their way of trying to fix things? Or was it just another empty gesture? I had to decide. Was I willing to go? Was I ready to put the past behind me and give them another chance? Or had the damage been done? I sat there in the car, staring at the message for what felt like forever. Part of me wanted to give in. I had so many memories of family trips, good times shared with laughter and bonding. Maybe this trip could be the chance to fix everything, to reconnect with the people who raised me. But then, the other part of me couldn't shake the bitterness. How could they just act like everything was fine after what had happened? Was this really an apology, or just another attempt to brush things under the rug? I decided I needed time. Time to think, to process everything, to figure out what I truly wanted. I couldn't make a decision while I was still this emotional. So, I put my phone down and decided to take a walk. The crisp evening air hit my face as I stepped outside, giving me a moment to clear my head. The silence around me was almost comforting, like it was giving me the space to make the right decision. As I walked around the block, memories of my childhood began to surface. I remembered the family vacations we used to take, long summer road trips, laughing around the dinner table, those rare moments of peace where everything felt right. It made me question, could we ever get back to that? Or was it all just an illusion, a thing of the past that I was never going to get back? The more I thought about it, the more I realized I had two choices. I could accept their invitation, go on the trip, and see if this was their way of making amends. Or I could stay firm in my stance and refuse to let them off the hook so easily. The idea of holding a grudge didn't sit well with me. I didn't want to live with resentment toward my parents forever. But at the same time, I didn't want to let them think they could get away with something like this without truly facing the consequences. I reached the end of the block and stopped, looking up at the sky. There was something peaceful about the way the stars twinkled in the distance. And in that moment, I realized I had to do what felt right for me. I couldn't just go along with what they wanted because it was easier. I needed to make my own decision based on how I felt, not on what they expected from me. Taking a deep breath, I pulled my phone out again and typed a response. Thanks for the offer, but I need more time. I'm not sure if I'm ready to let go of everything yet. I need to figure out if I can trust you again. I pressed send and felt a strange sense of relief. At least now, I wasn't jumping into anything blindly. I was setting a boundary, and that felt empowering. But just as I thought I had everything figured out, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voicemail from my mom. I hesitated before hitting play. What could she possibly want now? The message started, her voice shaky and urgent. I know you're upset, and I completely understand. But please, we need you. We can't do this without you. The trip is really important, not just to us but to you, too. It's not about us trying to fix everything with one gesture. It's about showing you that we want to make things right. Please, just think about it. We love you, and we don't want to lose you. Call me when you're ready, okay? Her words struck a chord in me. It wasn't just an invitation. It was a plea, a cry for help. Did they realize just how much they'd hurt me? Or was this just another desperate attempt to pull me back into the family dynamic they had broken? The longer I stood there, the more conflicted I felt. Could I take that leap and trust them again? Could this trip really be the start of something new? Or would it only end in disappointment?
There's more to this story than meets the eye. There's a deeper, twisted reason why they wanted OP on that trip, and believe me, it's not what you think. The truth is about to come to light, and you won't want to miss it. So, if you're curious to find out what really happened, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stick with us, because the next part is coming soon, and trust me, it's going to blow your mind.